like this, sorry. San Francisco go Ryan Sigma with the Lucio and the Mei. So you know what they're trying to do straight away, Matt, right? Like they want to use a Mei wall, they want to catch people out and run them down.
They're going to use the Mei wall here to boost up and then TP up to the high ground, potentially. Yep.
Awesome.
They don't even need the Mei wall. There's one where you could do over the, directly over the wall if everyone stands. The Shock could run that one before as Ansel be on the Widowmaker. So a lot of what people wanted in the Countdown Cup Finals, right? A Carpe Widowmaker battle, sub-in Carpe. Let's see how it goes. We'll get it now.
I love this though. San Francisco. Oh! What? How did he even see that? Super got Rascal killed just because he jumped. Well, man, that was hardly even his fault. I don't know how Carpe finds a shot like that, but he did. And San Francisco now are in a very awkward spot. They have to split up, spread out, and get back to spawn. Ouch!
What's the best with having Carpe in the game is he does stuff like that you rarely see anybody do so consistently. So we have Moth winning a little bit of a Lucio battle here against Funny Astro.
Right, it's traded though, and the Shock are without fighter right now. So with Batiste in play, Philly have way more durability, way more healing, and Super Shield is down. So is Troy Hogan. So really hard for the Shock to play on point right now. In fact, they can't at all.
No,
they have to regroup. And Funny Astro, he's Lucio. He's back in the fight already.
Right, like you mentioned, with the Batiste in play, a lot of extra damage. Also Junkrat as well. Maywall goes down, but the Riptire doesn't care for that.
Let it rip! There it is. Super gets caught by that one. He puts his shield up. It's futile though as he sneaks the tire behind it. Sato is down though, and both teams trade out their main tanks. Both teams still have a shield, and an immortality field is pretty crucial right now for Philly if they want to try and weather this storm. It protects them against Arns hitting huge headshots. Funny Astro was able to hunt down the Widowmaker, and now there's numbers on the point for Philly. Trichobi gets dropped down. Fusion, he returns, but there's no teammate. It's him and Moth against the world, and it's not enough. Philly again saved them off. Again, Moth gets an exit kill. And Alarm is not quite as fast as Funny Astro on returning to the point.
You have sound barrier though for the Philadelphia Fusion. It's funny, we wanted this one-on-one head-to-head matchup with the Widowmakers. You had Funny Astro who took out Ons in the last fight, then Moth returned the favor, taking out Carpe. So the Lucios getting in the mix, putting a lot of pressure on these Widows. Look for Sato maybe to drop the Supercharger.
There's the main wall though, and that's when the Shock want to go aggressive, but they're faced with a sound barrier right now. Super trapped inside, Hisu's trapped. Now it's going to be the Gravitic Flux here, and is there an Immortality Field? No! Fury and Sato drop down! The Winter Wonderland gets stained with blood, and the Shock find a way through. They spend heavy ultimates to get that point A though, Matt, but they were running out of time.
Yeah, they were. They needed to invest heavy like you had mentioned. As Carpe now will go away from Widow, you'll play McCree here. The second stage of the map. This tells you that Philly wants to get even more aggressive. They wanna really brawl this out, right? McCree Junkrat with your double shield plus the Lucio tells you they want to get really close quarter medium range, negate the effects of Ons maybe with some Sigma shields in his face with the Lucio pressure.
All right, Hisu. Gonna let it go again. Oh, Super. Okay, he's able to get away.
They trapped somebody, yeah.
Yeah, I think Super was forced to stand up there. Maybe he was halted up there, but who knows. Anyway, he's a Riptire. Okay, nice. Super catches that one with a Fire Strike. That could have been nasty. And now look at the Shock push forward. That Shatter is good. Super gets 3. Fury and Alarm, maybe even 4, in fact. Try and pick themselves back up. But San Francisco, they fight off the Riptire, and then they go up a gear. Philly weren't ready for that change of pace.
Yeah, and Shock do a nice job keeping Super alive. He's up on the high ground, he's trapped, and that allows the Shock to actually make this a one-fight stage. Lasts long enough. We can take a look here at the Shatter that comes down. It's a Fire Strike that hits Isu's tire, then just, huge Shatter around the corner.
Man, I mean, very cathartic
super
for Ryan.
lives
I love
for
it.
those. Super lives for those Shatters. That's like what do they call them? Like the bumper shatter, just to jump around the corner and just insta-shatter without even seeing around it.
I mean, you do that against Orisa because he just doesn't have time to put up another shield, and Sigma's shield normally doesn't touch the ground unless he angles it down, right? His viewing angle means that you can normally sneak a shatter under it unless it's like that. So, nicely done. Super now, getting caught out by the whole accretion combo by the looks of things. Sato Carpe here to clean up. We got the McCree for Philly. So much has happened just as we were discussing how that fight went. And San Francisco breezed through this second part of the map after a slow start.
Yeah, you had Ons on Symmetra for a quick minute. Now going over to the Widow here. Let's see if he can find any type of sight lines. Funny Ash has got to be real careful.
Yeah, I mean, too much of that overzealous jumping is going to catch you out against, Widowmaker players of this caliber. Any wasted movements could be devastating. So what are the Shock waiting for here, Matt?
Well, this is actually really good for the Shock, forcing this type of position, because this is opening up so much space for the Widow.
Carpe's a psycho. Yeah, absolute monster. Just rolls forward, flashbang into the mass of players, and an immortality field dropped there by Alarm means that Philly gets to play that kind of happy-go-lucky style. Ansan gets his head plucked right off, and Philly now get to re-establish that forward hole.
The Shock know that if they put pressure on the Carpe, there's no answer for Ans, and then he can just free fire on the Widow at range. So just speed boost and trying to get into Carpe's face is the play there. Now they bring it on Ash, so this will be a little bit better damage output.
Gravitic Flux, Sato's going to fortify and drop to the ground. Scarpe was protected though. He was able to step back out of that Gravitic Flux and then get a Deadeye off on Moth, which is big through that amplification matrix. It doesn't take long for the happy little skulls to appear there, I'll tell you what. And now, a minute 53 left on the clock. Philly still have plenty to work with. If they can sneak Hisu in here for a sizable EMP, whatever accompanies the supercharger from Philly will be devastating. And this is a pretty easy setup. Hisu might not even have to EMP. Rascal's hacked and dropped to the ground.
Yeah, and Super ends up using a Shatter here as well, and Moth cannot invest the sound barrier because he knows that this EMP is on the other side. So what do? I mean, the Gravitic Flux comes down. You don't want to beat it because then you're just going to use the EMP. It's going to go away. So just the presence of Hisu on the Sombra, changing the game here.
Carpe causing a whole lot of problems, and where he is set up here on the side, he can keep putting pressure down. They started to lose that supercharger early, and Matrix just forces Philadelphia back. And Troyobin looks like he got caught there by a hold. Carpe in a great spot though to punish. Now this is where things go wrong for him. The fact that he gets to kill an Ansar before he goes down is just huge. He's done more than his job. He gets a 2-for-1 trade playing from that position and he spawns closer. That's absolutely worth it for Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's going to be a Blizzard here used by Rascal as there's only 40 seconds on the clock, and the Shock need to get something going. This will be the sound barrier from Funny Astro. Keep everybody alive and in the fight as Philadelphia, they don't want to give up this position right here.
Hisu could drop in here and cause all sorts of problems for San Francisco right now. Okay, I think he got spotted out by Arts on that high ground. Rascal goes down to Carpe though, so not a great start. Moth wants to try and pressure here, but Carpe has so much protection and peel close by that it's very hard to try and 1v1 him right now. Here's the EMP. That is massive. Sound barrier comes out after though, so good work by Moth. He knew there'd be an EMP coming, saves the barrier, but without super, it doesn't matter. Even though he was clever with his ultimate usage there, San Francisco need their main tank and they need them badly. Carpe walks into a Gravitic Flux here, goes super aggressive, fights two and is eventually punished, but he's done his job. He knows he's done good work.
Yeah, it still doesn't feel good though for the Shock when the EMP comes through. Now, the sound barrier does come down and it's good, but they had to use an Amp Matrix and sound barrier just to get it out. Ons finally with a Bob at the end where Philadelphia, they come alive at the end on King's Row. Good point A defense. The Shock, they mount a really good offense from A to B, but the Fusion with a strong defensive stand. Carpe with the big switch over to the McCree. The Shock really didn't have an answer for that.
And he's playing incredibly aggressive for a McCree player, right? Quite often, you don't have a lot of self-peel outside of the flashbang, but Carpe was playing off angles. Sometimes you'd expect to see Sigma players play where Carpe is right now, because Sigma has his own self-shielding mechanic, has kinetic grasp, has a stun. But Carpe's playing there, and sure he's dying, Matt, but he's getting 2 kills every time. It's a 2-for-1 trade for him.
But I think this may be the next evolution of this Philadelphia Fusion roster, is when you need some more flexibility between your damage dealers, maybe you run Hisu and Ivy, right? They can kind of cover a lot of different bases, a lot like how on Control. It's very difficult for the Shock to game plan against that because they can come out and play anything, right, with those two in the game. When you go to a map like this, and you know you need your best hit scan player for an extended period of time, right? Pretty much the entire map, you're going to play some version of Widow, Ash, McCree. This is where you bring in Carpe. And I think when you allow Carpe to play in this type of niche and tell him, hey, go out there, click heads, play the hit scan, you'll see performances like this.
I mean, and Hisu just seems to be the player that does it all, right? He comes in now and he just fills whatever gap he needs to. In fact, there are no gaps when he's around. Sombra this time.
I wonder if we see them switch off of Ashe once they realized Widow is on the other side. They may have expected the Ashe for the shock on defense, just because it's a little bit safer, a little bit more consistent. The shock probably come out with Widow because they think the Fusion are going to run it, where you want to counter Widow versus Widow.
I mean, Philly aren't using any shields, so Ashe versus Widow looks much worse. I mean, Ashe for shield pressure and Dynamite, you know, getting there behind or through shields, much better. Hisu, sees 3 players on the high ground, so opts to get out. And now we see how Philly force the shock down onto the point, or if they can even do that. That's kind of where they want to fight to set Carpe up for the best vantage point possible. Shokoben's not to the low ground now, so the rest of the shock might have to just group up around him.
That was a really nice setup there by Philly. They're not able to capitalize. So when Fury gets to the high ground, they knock Choyoben off, and Hisu's waiting on the backside of the point. They actually hack Choi down on the point. There's just not enough to finish him off.
I mean, that poison mine is getting so much value for Rans there. Again, Hisu is sort of revealed and has to get out early, so that Sombra's not getting as much value as he'd like. Sato goes ding. Okay, he gets nano boosted in midair, otherwise that charge looked nothing but suicidal. Now he can sort of rotate here and catch Arns before he can get away. And with the nano boost, Arns clearly used his grappling hook to get into that position so there was no escape.
Just so much patience there from the Fusion. A lot like how we saw from the Gladiators playing around the nano boost. This will be a Transcendence used by Violet, and it's pretty much forced out to keep them alive on the point.
I mean, Sato's so elegant, by the way, able to stay alive by playing so aggressive against a team that features sort of Sigma and, you know, Zenyatta and Junkrat, things that just Winston hates to dive into. Oh, he goes and finds Answer again, expertly picking out or identifying an opportunity to eliminate that key player, and Rascal's asleep on the job here. He gets hacked immediately, so doesn't have remote mind here to open up the distance between him and Hisu, but he's still able to walk away. The Shock are taking a beating right now, but they're still weathering the storm. They're playing inside close quarters, and Sato respects them enough not to just run in here with Primal Rage. And that gives Rascal time for this Riptide, Matt.
Yeah, he's going to be able to take Alarm out in the back. Sato's still alive, though. It'll be a Bob use from Carpe onto the point. Onsu over to McCree now. That'll be the second tick. Onsu 2.
Okay, Shokoben can sit behind that shield for quite some time, and Sato tries to move out and help Bob. He gets cut down. Sigma is so hard to shift, especially when his opponents are down to, what, 2 or 3 players. Bob and Sato were not enough to cross the gap, and Philadelphia are starting to run out of time in much the same way San Francisco did. All they need to do, Matt, is to pretty much finish the map, but they need to make this EMP work, but the Shock split so much on this defense.
I was going to say, this next fight should be pretty good for Philly, though. EMP plus self-destruct.
Flux will catch. Okay, decent catch. Gets the Mercy and Ana. No other follow-up, though, so no chance to get him down to half health. But Shokoben just walks in there and takes care of Funny Astros. No resurrect for Tempo. Can't bring Fury back into the mix and get him resuited. This has to be a full reset for Philadelphia.
Yeah, and that EMP doesn't get a thing. So now if you're Philly, what do you want to run here as Ons takes off Alarm's head? This will get rest heroics. You're going to run McCree here. You're getting outranged so bad. This, they need to make a play for Ons if they're going to get value out of McCree.
Carpe and Funny Astro. It will be a damage boosted McCree. Tough to play, risky positioning here as Carpe now, because he doesn't know where the Junkrat is set up. So he'll play at medium to long range, which makes him very vulnerable to someone like Arns, who is on the prowl. Okay, Philly, move to Arns again to get rid of him. Perfect stuff from Sato. Again, he eliminates the enemy Widowmaker. He has been a standout in this series so far. And here's a Primal Rage for later. He'll hang on to it, doesn't get a chance to use it, gets accretion in midair, and Rascal comes back, finds 2 quick kills. Philly are able to take him down. Moth and Choikoven play close on the point, and Violet is just behind the shield. They get rid of Fury, and having a Batiste here is so huge. Somehow Hisu picks Violet off, then gets rid of Moth. Choikoven had his supports taken out from under his nose, and now Sato returns to the fight with a Primal Rage, and Hisu fought just enough time for Philly to stay in the game. They get point A, and Philly get to move the cart.
What a play from Hisu, able to get 2, stay alive long enough, battle it out with Choi, and then Sato from the spawn with the Primal Rage gets back. They knock Choi off, as now Philly gets a chance to move the card. Sato goes over to Orisa, Fury on Sigma, so you kind of have to match at this moment of the game. But the Shock have a huge advantage in terms of time and ults.
Choikoven would like to play as far forward as he can, but it seems as if this is as far as the Shock feel comfortable going, playing around this corner. Choi acting as the off-angle Sigma, but Carpe sees the trap, flashes Choi, but still extremely safe.
Huge EMP.
All right, but it's going to be an immortality field here, so it doesn't look like Philly are really in position to follow up on it. Mid-air hack on Choi is very classy, but it doesn't achieve much in terms of Philly's overall game plan, and they start to run out of gas. Matt, what happened there? This setup looks so good.
You had a 6-player EMP, and then Hisu gets another hack on a Choi to deny a Gravitic Flux. You've got to be able to capitalize on that a little bit. I mean, maybe their idea of capitalizing on that is they used EMP and the other team ended up using Tire and Supercharger. But still, having Gravitic Flux in this fight, it's going to be huge for the Shock.
Fury to move up here. Carpe with a Deadeye. I don't know really what he gets with this one, though. Arns went for one of his own with the Gravitic Flux. It was a better combination that San Francisco were able to leverage here. Now, Arns gets cleanup duty. Flashed around and kill the corner. Fury didn't know what hit him. Philadelphia staved off once more. Now, bear in mind, it took them so long to get point A that they are not working with a lot of time here on point B. Carpe, I don't know what he was dead-eyeing there. I wonder why he doesn't save that to maybe combo with Fury's Flux or even Alarm's amplification matrix.
He's trying to deny potentially the Deadeye and some damage coming down with the Shock. Make them a little bit scared to kind of come out and peek, put some damage out on the players up in the sky. This will be Hisu to get the touch to trigger OT.
All of the Shock are playing together now. They need to get value out of Sato on Orisa. Sorry, out of Super on Orisa. Carpe down early, though. That's not good. And Matrix into what looked like a couple of grenades from Rascal, and that gets rid of the key damage dealer for Philadelphia. They've got no choice but to plod along anyway, but they're dealing with the Shock on the high and the low ground simultaneously. The Sigma of Choi is a thorn in the side, but they get rid of Rascal before the Immortality Field can be used effectively. Now the Gravitic Flux. Fury's got 2 caught in that one. The increasing to follow it up. Both the Violet's so low. If Fury wants to push even further, Immortality Field used there for the fusion. They know they need to keep going and keep applying pressure. Mock goes down, and there's going to be a sound barrier here for the fusion if they need it. Somehow, against the odds, without Carpe, they find a way to break through, and they get themselves set a chance at winning the map.
And so much after the Countdown Cup was said, is this Philly team clutch enough in those big moments to win some of those fights that you need to absolutely turn in your favor if you're going to be a championship team? We've seen them do it twice now. This will be Supercharger for Sato as they're trying to win it here. This will get you space around the corner. EMP gonna come in for Hisu? No, they save it. They save it here.
All right, and it was a sound barrier on the Shock as well. I get the temptation would definitely have been there. But the Shock had already got a decent amount of value out of that ultimate from Violet. Violet, by the way, on Lucio.
Yeah.
You'd love to see it, man. These guys can do anything. San Francisco, I mean, they are sitting on a bunch of key ultimates here, Matt. By the numbers, you think if they can ration these effectively, they can hold.
EMP plus beat here. This will be the beat for the fusion, and then the tire doesn't go off.
EMP comes in. It's a huge hit as well. Sound barrier was also there for the fusion, so they're able to at least avoid most of the early killing potential from that Ant Matrix. Now they go for Supercharger. So they combine both of their damage boosting ultimates. Have the Shock made a key mistake here? They walked right into this one, and now Carpe wants to push ahead. Strike open, caught out on the right-hand side. Gravitic Flux on 3, and Carpe picks him off. It's Clay Pigeon shooting, and the Philadelphia Fusion, they have like 2 ultimates, maybe 3 against 5 from San Francisco. Gigantic EMP from Hisu, and now they're on the road. It's overtime. If they leave the car for any reason, this round is over, but they have a chance to win. Holt comes out, Deadeye is there, and Supercard touch! Are you kidding me? What was this?
What a comeback from the Fusion. As you see Super's face just absolutely stunned. Philly with some heroics when they needed it. Oh man, what a game. If you're a Fusion fan or any of the players, this is the type of game that gives you the confidence going into the postseason that you can get it done against a team like the Shock. What they've done on that map right there, what they did in that map right there reminds you of like the stuff that we saw from like the NYXLs, right? Winning these incredible down fights early on, you know, season 1, right? The Shock last year winning in the impossible scenarios. That was special from Philly, what we saw in Kings Row. What a map.
This is the kind of stuff that doesn't come along very often, ladies and gentlemen. So savor it, especially for Philly fans. This is the kind of stuff that fuels you being obnoxious on Twitter and Reddit for the next season or so. So lap it up while you can. But right now, the Fusion going to halftime, and they've got to be soaring. Spirits have to be high. But we're talking about the San Francisco Shock here. We're talking about a Countdown Cup winners, front runners in NA. I mean, very hard to count them out. There's a ton of talk about at the break, but I just want to say we've been blessed with some incredible clutch moments, Matt. You brought it up. Are Philly clutch enough so far? It looked like they are. Let's see if our experts agree as we head over to Watchpoint.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile. And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Hello and welcome one and all to our game break presented by Pringles. Wavy, Zoe here, joined by Costa as well as Reinforce. And this match actually really delivers. I am on the edge of my seat as the Philadelphia Fusion are looking to get their revenge on the San Francisco Shock, who knocked them out of the Countdown Cup just a week ago. So let's talk about how they get it done. Gentlemen, starting at map 1 here, Reinforce, you had some thoughts about Ivy and Hisu being in the mix there for the Philadelphia Fusion.
Yeah, I mean, it deserves to be mentioned at least because after the Countdown Cup, we talked about, okay, well, where does Carpe fit into the mix? We know he has fantastic hit scan play, and he's generally the guy you want to rely on when it comes down to these clutch moments. But the Philadelphia Fusion in a hero pool, with Genji removed, actually brought out Ivy and Hisu again, and the fusion looked good while doing it. Hisu specifically on this Junkrat, he was so proactive, making plays, and actually quite a big difference maker when it came down to it. It felt like the San Francisco Shock haven't quite made themselves comfortable yet in this hero pool. We saw Striker flex over to the Junkrat at times, and they were trying a few different compositions, even playing the Reinhardt on Night Market compared to Fusion, who were playing the Winston and actually upping the tempo a little bit. So it does feel like the Shock were actually outplayed when it came to the compositions. And generally speaking, Fusion has been the one who struggles a bit in a hero pool until they figure things out until the last minute, and then they really get it going. Specifically mentioning like when Genji started to kick off, they were a bit late in that adaptation, but now it does feel like Fusion have figured out this meta, and with that, they have the confidence and they're being proactive about it, and it does feel like they really took it to the Shock, who were a bit, stunned by it all, but then we saw Super subbed in for King's Row, and that's when we saw both teams really go head to head.
Yeah, I think this is the composition that we've seen from the San Francisco Shock since the beginning of this season almost. They sub Super in to play that Reinhardt. They have Moth on the Lucio, and it's sort of, legacy of 2019, and they just run and have so much control over the match. And honestly, it's pretty crazy that the Philadelphia Fusion did win this map, because it felt like the San Francisco had them on the brink, on the edge, multiple times throughout the series. Like, San Francisco almost full held Philadelphia Fusion on the first point, except Hisu somehow kills the backline on his own. And then we get to the very end fight here again, and Super just can't touch. If they get back into that fight, they're probably in a pretty good position. So this was a San Francisco Shock match to lose, and they only just lost it. And I think this could come back to bite them, because I think it was you, Zoe, who just got this statistic that the San Francisco Shock, at least not in a very long time, has reverse swept, but that's because they never had to. They've never had their backs against the wall like this, so I'm really interested to see how they're going to respond.
I'm just so very impressed that, as you said, Reinforce, how well they figured out the meta. Because they didn't just show us and executed one composition really well. They showed us a lot of different looks. We saw the Echo in the mix. We saw them coming out with Pharah. We saw them coming out with Sombra. Was there anything you felt like they particularly looked strong with? Or do you think just across the board they got it figured out?
No, across the board, I think they have it figured out, because specifically they know what their players are great at. Carpe got subbed in for King's Row because his skill set was required on King's Row, and they know what he's good at, and as such, he feels confident being subbed in, knowing what his duties are, and then they play around that. And then on Leading Tower, you saw Ivy and Hisu. They know what they have to do and the heroes they're going to play and how they're going to pull it off. So I feel like the Philadelphia Fusion as a team, as an organization, has really figured out how to work around all of these different chess pieces they have, because they have so many options, and now it feels like all the players have a great understanding of what they're supposed to pull off, and it all comes together when you have these hero pools that results in a lot of different compositions depending on the map. But it does feel like Fusion have got it together now.
Yeah, and you just love to see it. You love to see a plan well executed and things just coming together. And several of those moments are usually featured in our Crunch Time presented by Pringles Wavy. And this one particularly is going out to Super, who had quite a moment on King's Row. Why don't you guys walk us through it?
Yeah, Costa, I gotta start off here. It's a Rhino
you got
play.
this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And actually, we were picking out plays, etc. And we honestly thought that San Francisco Shock were going to win King's Row because they've been so dominant on this map. And this is a large reason why. Because Super on this Reinhardt, he is so determined when he comes in. He knows how to navigate all the corners, how to execute fights. And these big shatters, I cannot state enough how big of a difference maker this is. When you have a Reinhardt that can reliably fire strike rip tires and then hit massive shatters. It helps out a team so much. So when we think of King's Row, I think of this as San Francisco Shock's best map. Like Moth in on the Lucio and Super on the Reinhardt, they know exactly how to play this map in perfection. And Super coming in clutch on that Reinhardt, it is so clutch for this team. So them dropping this map, as Costa said, is a big worrying sign for the rest of the series. How are the Shock going to dig themselves out of this hole? Do you dig yourself out of a hole? I don't even know anymore. It's been a long day.
Dig up.
Sure, you dig up.
Oh, pretty big on the defensive side on Kings Row, on the McCree. On their offensive attack, I think it was really about like Hisu and Sato and Fury. But now this gives you a Widowmaker who can go toe-to-toe with Ons.
Carpe would love nothing more than to try and find a way to sneak one over Ants, but in order to do so, he needs to be probably pretty creative with his angle selection. Maybe, you know, like a grappling hook shot, but everyone's safe behind Smurf's shield right now.
Winston Ball on offense.
Okay, that's pretty dive. Wow, and the Fury at the park over there, that's odd.
Well, it kind of brings you to the ground a little bit faster.
Right, so he's trying to break maybe even the hold or something like that. Yeah, okay, doesn't work out.
So, like, maybe what we see here, Violet takes a 1v1 against Hisu, takes him out, but Fury trying to get to the point, force people down, then maybe kind of either knock people off the bridge into the fusion or set up a big dive with like a pile driver from behind into a Winston jump.
Carpe still looking for that opportunity. Rascal finds Sato there without a halt, so it looks like just damage boosted Junkrat mines. Claim the Winston.
He could have been trying to get Alarm kind of charged up, maybe stayed for a little bit too long.
I mean, Alarm wants to build this nano as fast as possible. Not quite as quickly as we saw Shaz do it in that previous series, but there are a couple other factors to consider there. Oh my.
That's a pick.
Oh, that's... Okay, that has to be an instant resurrect here. Is that safe for Moth to go there, though? It looks like somewhat safe. Surprised that it's not repeat by Carpe. I guess he must have dropped down after taking the shot. Immortality field for Rascal, and he needs to make the most of this opportunity now. Get those mines in. Remote mine to get away. I like that. It looks like Troy Urban's sleeping right now, and they lose Ans, so this is looking bad for San Francisco, and Carpe keeps edging further and further around behind the shot. He's getting everybody! Moth and Rascal both down to headshots, and this Riptire is aimless. He'll get Carpe, but the rest of Philly have numbers on point A.
This will be the fusion able to take point A once they get in position. We saw it on the overhead map. You had Fury, Hisu, and Funny Astro get behind. And as soon as Carpe gets a pick, then everything starts to work out for the fusion. We can take a look. Carpe's POV.
Well, that's a Jimmy.
Takes out Rascal, and then on the way down. Ooh, that is so clean.
And then he misses the Riptire. You hate to see it. It's like the largest target. Riptire, a lot bigger than a headshot hitbox of a Mercy.
Walls here, plus the ability to like get an EMP out of this could be really big for Philadelphia.
Well, it just means it's harder to take Hisu by surprise as he gets into the backline. If there's a peek here, Carpe will find it. Nice angle. I don't think Violet knows he's here yet. He's just being very patient. Okay, gets a body shot. Now the cat's out of the bag, and you'll see that 3 players from San Francisco just stand behind that pillar. Can Philly do anything with that advantage? Not really, losing Sato here to a halt, and Carpe finds a pick, but it's traded instantly.
Yeah, it looks like Rascal got right in his face and took him out. And they kind of need to do that because you saw the position that Carpe forced on that Widowmaker. Now the switch over to McCree, but you stay on the Widow, and they would have been forced into those sightlines pretty much the entire time. Now you bring in McCree, kind of go close quarters here, is trying to deal with Ons in the mid-range.
Nano up for Alarm here. Hisu waiting for his opportunity to strike, and who's it? Looks like he really wants to make sure he catches Trickyoban in his EMP if possible. Okay, so he goes for an airborne one, and that's pretty good. 3 players caught. Trickyoban was the first target, and he's dispatched. Rascal and Violet were also hacked, and those 2 abscond very quickly. They'll need to return to the fray now, as Philly need a couple more kills here. This is not really the pace that they're going to be capturing this point with properly. They go 1 by 1, this time looking for Smurf, who's hit with a fat biotic grenade from Alarm. Easy kill on that Orisa there. And now Carpe can start to step forward here. Starting to find some of these heads, but again, there need to be more of these kills from Philly. If they slow down like this, they're not going to cap.
But are you okay with this with the fusion? They're going to have the Shock invest a few ultimates.
I mean, you did
into
too,
the
right?
fight. Yes, but potentially we see changes coming in. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like Sato and Fury decide to switch on the tanks and go like a Risa Sigma, try and push towards the left-hand side. Rascal now goes to Sombra, and Philly decides to stay on this.
So then this looks maybe a little bit less good from Philly, the way that fight went. I mean, look, it's elementary. If the defenders spawn as close as they do, like you can't just get 1 kill and then obviously mill around looking for your next opportunity. They need to come together. They need to be, both sides of the Philadelphia pincer need to strike. So self-destruct here, this will force position. That's why Moth and Arns will just stay in the side room now. Does this allow Philly to catch a shock player off guard? Arns quickly 180. Oh my. Sato. I mean, Arns was actually looking at the Sombra. Hisu at the time, but he'll take the kill. Immortality field now deployed, so Arns gets to play a little bit more aggressively for now. Forced back, and that's a gigantic Bionic Grenade to set up the kill for Carpe. He's going to be looking for more now. Choikoban goes down. Carpe hoped to be shown in that side room, but now he needs to deal with Smurf. They're going to nano him. The Electric Cowboy makes his return, and Moth had no chance to get away before the Deadeye was at full potency, at least enough to get rid of the Lucio. 2 ticks for Philly. They're brawling on the point, and they're trying to get value out of this. McCree Carpe prevents a touch from Choikoban, and it will be about 90 seconds, give or take, for Philly after finishing the map.
And it's so interesting with the way that Philadelphia's played this series thus far. We didn't see Ansa in the first map on Lijiang Tower. We saw a combination of Striker and Rascal. But since we've seen Ans come in, Philadelphia has done a really nice job of putting pressure on him, whether it's Carpe on the Widow, Carpe on Ashe to mirror, or Sato getting in his face with like the Winston, which is something that the Shock, it's not like they can't deal with it, but they're usually the team that's setting the tempo and the pace of the game and forcing you to react to them. It's a little bit different now when they're putting so much pressure onto Ans, and you're kind of forced to react, and Carpe gets a pick on the Widowmaker, then you have to scramble around a bit. It's usually always in that regard kind of going in San Francisco's favor, where it's really interesting looking at this series and seeing what you can do, make them look a little bit more vulnerable if you are the team that can find these holes and put the pressure on.
That's what Philadelphia have been going for here, Matt. How do they okay, so now they're going to try and play this classic Philly dive defense setup.
Yeah. I was going to say it's easier said than done because Philly is one of the only teams, I think, in the league, regardless of region, that has a roster that could potentially give the Shock like trouble like this, right? They're going to get aggressive yet again on defense. Funny Astro will be playing the Mercy here, so you'll have the damage boost for Carpe.
And they go Diva mixed up here with Smurf's Orisa. So, okay, a little bit of a different combination. It gives Choikoban the ability, though, to pressure someone like Carpe or Alarm a little bit effectively. Also chase Funny Astro down. Going up against the Winston Diva comp, it doesn't feel too bad prolonging the lifespan of your Orisa barrier by using a bit of defense matrix here and there. That Mega Health Pack is hacked, so this makes it a little bit hard for Shock to make this a proper staging ground. But they drop to the point, and now Philly are the attackers. The shoes on the other foot, so to speak. They're going to have to make a move soon. 1.5 ticks already here for the Shock.
Yeah, they give up a tick. They're getting very close to giving up another one as Carpe gets a damage boost onto his Dynamite, so you can hear the extra ticks getting very close to a Bob.
Yeah, Carpe really wants a better... Oh my,
that's a big one.
Oh, the Bob! Straight on in here. What can be done? Carpe has to drop down to set this up. Is it worth the risk? A lot of people hacked inside the small room, but Immortality Field works well inside enclosed spaces, and most of the Shock benefit from that. Now Sato Primal Razor, there's no Immortality Field left! And the rest of the Shock are a red smudge on the walls as Sato dives straight on in and doesn't even have to use Primal. Philly play patient, Matt. They give a tick or so to the Shock. Can they keep doing this? I mean, at what point do they have to sort of commit earlier as their margin of error runs out?
So they can. With the tanks that they have, real mobility between the Winston and the Diva, they can keep cycling on the point, and if the Shock are going to try and bunker up by the health pack underneath them, you can have the Winston jump down, juggle for a bit, the defense matrix up from above, then the Diva rotate in. See, though, Rascal getting closer towards an EMP. It'll be Hisu with an EMP online first.
They may just go airborne for this one.
I don't know if he
choice on EMP suitor, maybe not necessary.
Carpe with another Bob.
Gives you a ton of pressure on the point. Hisu maybe just hacks Smurf. Okay, he actually goes for the EMP here. Maybe see how low Sato and Fury go as a frontline trade makes him feel like it's a worthwhile investment. In fairness, Bob and EMP to win a fight, I think you take that any day of the week as Philly. 2 ults for a fight is a good going rate.
Do they know that these 3 players are still here for the fusion? They're just going to kind of let them... Maybe they thought they speed boosted out, but
they know
now they know, yeah.
Oh! Okay, it's a trade. I wonder if that's worthwhile for Hisu. He doesn't have EMP.
Probably. I mean, no Amp Matrix, no Immortality here.
The Shock want to commit, though. Oh, there are a lot of ultimates being thrown in here, so they only have the healing right now of Moth. That's all they're working with. But it looks like the Fusion are reeling right now after losing that first player. Still, they can't keep Arns alive as a result. Alarm going to drop onto the point now, and he's most of the healing for the Fusion, but he's got caught in some sort of 1v2 scenario. Some nightmare manifest here as Alarm's probably one of the only players you know who wants to take those. And the trade out doesn't work for Philly.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't work out in the end, but it is some really nice plays from the Shock that end up resulting in them taking the point. I think you would take that trade. It's just that there's a sound barrier available for the San Francisco Shock. They push on forward. They have an EMP of their own that they use there, and they pretty much forced to use all that with the Batiste healing out of the way. This is going to be a primal rage.
That biotic grenade connection was absurd from Alarm. Despite the fact that there was an Orisa shield in play, he just gets it right. Sato's able to dive in there as well and cause so many problems. He was the initiator, and it's ult percent for everybody right now as Smurf and the Shock get farmed on the backside of that fight.
Yeah, Sisu works his way up towards another EMP. That'll be kind of like the biggest test here. It's coming up soon. You'll have EMPs for both teams going into the point. Moth not close to another sound barrier though. So not close to a Valkyrie either. Not an Anubis. So it'll be interesting how Philly does this. They probably have to spread apart. You could have Bob come in and like contest the point. If Carpe doesn't get hit with an EMP, this will be Sato hacked. Still wants to push forward though.
Well, he knows he can hang, and by the time he's probably ready to get out, yeah, he'll have the ability available again as the EMP ticks out. And Carpe, huge Dynamite Bob combo there.
Yeah, Bob plus Dynamite locks everybody in there. And I believe Violet doesn't even make it with the team. Like, there's that Immortality field, but you can see him a little bit further away, gets cut off by the Mega Health Pack to the left. So we're not even at full force there for the Shock. But this is something you usually see the Shock do to other teams, right? Get aggressive, meet them at the choke, like force things out early. As Philly is kind of taking a page from San Francisco's own book.
And they look so well drilled playing these setups, Matt. I mean, not many teams feel more comfortable playing the riskier defense, but that's Philly. That's what they love to do. And that is a gargantuan EMP onto 5 people by Hisu. With Violet losing that Immortality field now, fight's still going. Hisu's able to get out, and that's an EMP in response, only catching Fury. So Sato gets a nano boost. He could do a lot with this now. Chasing Violet down. Ton of healing now missing. It's just Moth with the Shock, and that sound barrier looks a little bit less pleasant when it's only on about 4 players.
Yeah, both EMPs a little bit lackluster, but at least San Francisco able to follow up the few kills out of Rascals, but respawns come in for the Philly Fusion. Smurf on the point, still not even a tick for the San Francisco Shock.
Sato's still alive!
That'll be a T-Mac. Sato is just unbelievable. Side to side, the Primal Rage. His Primal Rage felt like it lasted twice as long as it normally does.
I don't know how he got away with that. I have no idea how he got away with that play. You saw, I mean, Arms beelining for him, and somehow he got flashed, I think, was stayed alive with 20 HP. Funny Astro comes in, heals him up, and then there's a defense matrix from Fury. Philly, they're a well-oiled machine, man. You know, they're more than the sum of their parts right now. San Francisco need to find a way to break that synergy, to punish Sato for these dives, but now they're running into another bomb, another EMP, a self-destruct. It looks dire for San Francisco.
Yeah, and the Shock are going to get aggressive in their own right. They're going to put Smurf on the Winston here late game, and also Violet's going to go over to the Moira.
It's time. Self-destruct to the high ground, doesn't find any targets, but forces Philly to split a little bit. Sato goes down first. That's a big part of the win condition here for San Francisco. But Fury's able to chase Smurf down. He still has a self-destruct and thereby has a mech reset. Getting hacked would have been a problem there. So he goes for the reset, self-destruct, doesn't find any kills. That's 1 tick and counting now. And then he gets back in the mech only to be hacked and punished once more. But outside, he bit off a little bit more than he could chew. To the rescue comes Sato, who turns the favor from the prior fight. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Philadelphia Fusion are blowing my mind right now. Defensive dive, playing risky, ride the lightning to victory in straight maps. 3-0.